When my wife told me she didn't love me anymore and wanted her ex back, I just smiled and said okay. She thought I was weak, broken. But what she didn't know was that I'd been 3 steps ahead for months, and her perfect little reunion was about to become her worst nightmare. Before I tell you how I destroyed the woman who tried to destroy me, do me a favor, hit that like button and subscribe, because this story is going to take you on a ride you won't forget. Trust me, the ending. You'll never see it coming. My name is Vincent, and for 5 years I thought I had it all figured out. A beautiful wife named Cassandra, a house in the suburbs with the white picket fence, career as a software engineer that paid well enough for us to live comfortably. We weren't rich, but we were stable, happy. Or at least that's what I told myself every single day. Cassandra was the kind of woman who turned heads when she walked into a room. Confident, ambitious, always perfectly put together. When we got married, I felt like the luckiest man alive. She chose me quiet, analytical Vincent over all the other guys who'd been chasing her since college. We had plans, big plans. We were going to wait a few more years before having kids, build up our savings, travel a bit. Everything was on track. Everything made sense. Until about 3 months ago, when I started noticing the small things. The little cracks in the foundation that you tell yourself don't mean anything because you're too afraid to look closer. It started with her phone. Cassandra had always been on her phone, but this was different. She'd tilt the screen away from me when notifications popped up. She'd take calls in the other room, speaking in hushed tones. When I'd ask who it was, she'd say it was work or one of her girlfriends. And I'd nod like an idiot because I wanted to believe her. Then came the late nights at the office. 2-3 times a week she'd text me saying she had to stay late for a project. I'd heat up dinner for one and eat alone at our dining table, staring at the empty chair across from me. Our bedroom felt like Antarctica. The warmth we used to have, the intimacy, the connection, it all just evaporated. When I'd reach for her at night, she'd pull away with some excuse. Headache, tired, not in the mood. Weeks turned into a month, then 2 months. I started feeling like a roommate in my own marriage. But here's the thing about me. I'm not the type to make a scene. I observe. I analyze. I wait. And my gut was screaming that something was wrong. Then she started mentioning him, Brent, her ex-boyfriend from college. At first, it was casual, innocent even. Oh, I saw Brent posted about his new car dealership on social media. Or, remember Brent? He just went through a divorce. Poor guy. Every mention of his name felt like a needle under my skin, but I kept my face neutral. I'd learned a long time ago that the quietest people see the most. The day everything changed was our anniversary. I left work early, stopped by the flower shop to grab her favorite roses, and drove home with this stupid hope that maybe tonight we'd reconnect. Maybe I was overthinking everything. Maybe we just needed to remember why we fell in love in the first place. I walked through our front door with those roses in my hand, and I heard her voice coming from the living room. She was laughing. Not the polite laugh she'd been giving me for months, but the real one. The one I hadn't heard in so long, I'd almost forgotten what it sounded like. I stood in the hallway, hidden from view, and watched her on a video call. The laptop screen illuminated her face, and she looked more alive than she had in months. Then I heard his voice, Brent's voice, and I heard her say the words that shattered everything I thought I knew. I miss you too. I think I made a mistake marrying him. I backed out of that house so quietly you'd think I was never there. The roses ended up in a gas station trash can. For 2 weeks I said nothing. Not a single word about what I'd heard. I went to work, came home, kissed Cassandra on the cheek like everything was normal. But behind that mask of normalcy, I was moving pieces on a chessboard she didn't even know existed. I hired a private investigator, a guy named Ramirez, who came highly recommended. I needed facts, not feelings. I needed proof, not paranoia. And within 5 days, he delivered. The photos hit me like a freight train, even though I'd been expecting them. Cassandra and Brent at expensive restaurants I could never afford. Cassandra and Brent checking into hotels during her supposed late nights at work. Close-ups of her wearing jewelry I'd never seen before. Gifts he'd bought her while I was at home eating reheated pasta alone. Ramirez's report was thorough. They'd been seeing each other for 2 months. Brent owned a luxury car dealership that was bleeding money, recently divorced, and apparently decided my wife was his consolation prize. I kept every photo, every receipt, every timeline detail in a folder on my laptop labeled project files. Cassandra never questioned it. Why would she? I was boring, predictable Vincent, the guy who was too busy with work to notice his own wife slipping away. Except I noticed everything. I always had. Then came the night she decided to end it. I was sitting on our couch pretending to watch television when she walked in with that look on her face. The one people practice in mirrors before they break someone's heart. She asked me to turn off the TV, and I knew this was it. The performance I'd been waiting for. Vincent, we need to talk. Her voice was cold, rehearsed. She'd probably practiced this speech with Brent. I don't love you anymore. I haven't for a while now. I looked at her calmly, kept my breathing steady. Is there someone else? She hesitated for just a second, long enough for me to see the guilt flash across her face before she buried it. Brent reached out to me a few months ago. We reconnected. He's changed, Vincent. He's grown up. And being around him made me realize that that you and I, we're not right for each other anymore. Should have been angry. I should have yelled, thrown things, demanded answers. That's what she expected. That's what she'd prepared for. Instead, I just nodded slowly and said, if that's what you want, I won't stop you. The confusion on her face was almost comical. This wasn't in her script. That's it? That's all you have to say? What do you want me to say, Cassandra? If you're not happy, you should go be happy. And that's when she snapped. All that guilt she'd been carrying turned into rage in an instant. Because my calmness made her feel like the villain she actually was. She stood up, her hands balling into fists at her sides. You see, this is exactly the problem. You're so passive. So emotionally unavailable. She shoved my chest hard, her palm hitting me square in the sternum. You're always working, always in your head. Brent makes me feel something, Vincent. He makes me feel alive. I let her words hang in the air between us. Let her see how ugly they sounded out loud. Then I stood up slowly, looking down at her with an expression I'd perfected over 2 weeks of practice. Complete neutrality. I just want you to be happy, Cassandra. That's all I've ever wanted. She stared at me like I was a stranger. Maybe she was finally seeing me clearly for the first time. Or maybe she was just seeing her own reflection in my eyes and didn't like what was staring back. She took a step back, and suddenly her anger transformed into something worse, contempt. You know what your problem is? She said quietly. You're too safe. Too boring. Too weak. She grabbed her purse from the coffee table. I'll move in with Brent next week. We can figure out the divorce details later. I smiled. Actually smiled. Whatever you need. She left that night thinking she'd won. She had no idea the game had just begun. Let me tell you something about being underestimated. It's the greatest weapon you can have. While Cassandra was packing her designer clothes and texting Brent about their exciting new life together, I was sitting in my home office, going through documents she'd never bothered to look at. See, Cassandra always left the boring stuff to me. Bills, taxes, property documents, investments. She just spent the money and assumed it would always be there. That was her first mistake. The house, solely in my name. I'd inherited it from my father 3 years ago, and we never got around to adding her to the deed. She'd signed a prenup before we got married, her idea actually, because she was making more money than me back then and wanted to protect herself. Ironic, isn't it? That piece of paper was about to protect me instead. And our joint savings account, the one with almost $80,000, I'd been legally transferring chunks of it into a separate account for 6 weeks. Ever since I discovered those bank statements showing expensive hotel charges I never authorized. I wasn't stealing. I was protecting what was mine. There's a difference. The day Cassandra moved out was almost theatrical. Brent showed up in his flashy red convertible, probably worth more than his entire failing business. He strutted up to my door in his expensive suit, slicked back hair, and that arrogant smirk I wanted to wipe off his face, but I didn't. I just stood there in my doorway, waving like a friendly neighbor as they loaded her stuff into his car. I even helped carry a few boxes. Played the role of the sad, defeated husband perfectly. "No hard feelings, man," Brent said to me, extending his hand. The audacity of this guy. I shook it firmly, looked him dead in the eye, and said, "Take care of her." He had no idea those words were a threat, not a blessing. Cassandra barely looked at me as she left. She was too busy texting her friends, probably telling them how liberating it felt to finally escape boring Vincent. The neighbors watched from their windows. I could feel their pity, their judgment. Let them think what they wanted. They'd understand soon enough. Week 1, after she left, I filed for divorce. My lawyer was a shark named Patricia Moss. And when I showed her the evidence Ramirez had compiled, her eyes lit up like Christmas morning. "This is a clean case," she said. "Adultery, documented proof, prenup in place. She's not getting anything." I cited adultery in the filing, attached every photo, every hotel receipt, every timeline inconsistency. Made it official, made it public record. Week 2, I froze our joint credit cards. Cassandra had maxed out 2 of them in the past month: fancy dinners, spa treatments, gifts for Brent. When the cards suddenly stopped working, my phone exploded with angry texts. I ignored every single one. Let her panic. Let her wonder. But here's where it gets interesting. Week 3, I made a phone call to a man named Derek Hutchinson, Brent's business partner in that luxury car dealership. You see, 6 months ago, I'd made an investment through a shell company my accountant had set up for tax purposes. $25,000 into Brent's business. He never knew it was me. Why would he? The paperwork listed the investment under a corporate name. I'd been doing my research on Brent long before Cassandra rekindled things with him. Call it intuition. Call it insurance. Call it whatever you want. I told Derek I wanted out. Wanted my investment returned immediately. That triggered an automatic financial audit according to their partnership agreement. And that audit? It uncovered something beautiful. Brent had been embezzling from his own company, cooking the books, dodging taxes. The dealership was a house of cards, and I'd just blown on it. I made one more call an anonymous tip to the IRS. Just doing my civic duty, you understand. Then I sat back and watched the dominoes fall. The first domino fell exactly 12 days after Cassandra moved in with Brent. Federal investigators showed up at his dealership at 9 in the morning with a warrant. By noon, the story was all over the local news: luxury car dealer under investigation for fraud, embezzlement, and tax evasion. I watched the coverage from my living room with a cup of coffee. And I won't lie to you, it tasted better than anything I'd had in months. Cassandra called me that afternoon, screaming so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. "You froze me out. I can't access any of our money. My cards don't work. What the hell did you do?" Her voice was shrill, panicked. This wasn't the confident woman who'd walked out of my life 3 weeks ago. This was someone realizing she'd made a catastrophic mistake. "That was my money, Cassandra," I said calmly. "You wanted your freedom. I gave it to you. You're free now. Completely free." Then I hung up. Blocked her number. Let her drown in the consequences of her own choices. Within a week, Brent's dealership collapsed completely. The investigation revealed he'd been running a sophisticated scam selling cars with falsified inspection reports, dodging taxes through offshore accounts, even forging customer signatures on loan documents. The man Cassandra thought was her upgrade, her passionate adventure, was nothing but a criminal in an expensive suit. And when the police came for him, they didn't do it quietly. I heard through mutual acquaintances that Cassandra was there when they arrested him, right in the middle of some restaurant, handcuffs and everything. She sat there in her designer dress, the one Brent had probably bought with stolen money, and watched the man she'd destroyed her marriage for get dragged away. The same restaurants where she'd laughed and kissed him while I ate dinner alone were now crime scenes in her memory. But it gets better. With Brent's arrest, his assets froze. That fancy apartment Cassandra had moved into, seized, that convertible, impounded. All those gifts, that jewelry, those promises of a luxurious life, gone overnight. She ended up in a cramped studio apartment on the wrong side of town, and because she'd quit her marketing job thinking she'd be Brent's kept woman. She had to take whatever work she could find. I heard she was folding clothes at a retail store in the mall. The same mall where we used to shop together on weekends? My lawyer delivered the divorce papers to her at work. Patricia insisted on it, said it would drive the point home. Cassandra was at the register when the courier walked in, asked for her by name in front of customers and coworkers, and handed her the envelope. The terms were clear. She got nothing from the house. Minimal settlement because of the prenup, and the adultery was documented in public court records for anyone to see. Her family called me, her mother, crying, asking what happened to us. I told her the truth, every detail Cassandra had conveniently left out of her version. The affair, the lies, the betrayal. Her father stopped talking to her for 2 months. Her friends, the ones she'd told that I was boring and emotionally unavailable, they all saw the court documents. Saw the photos. Suddenly, her story didn't hold up anymore. For months after she walked out of my door, Cassandra showed up again. But she wasn't strutting this time. She wasn't confident or put together. She was broken. Her makeup was smeared from crying. Her hair was a mess. And when I opened the door, she literally fell to her knees on my porch. "Vincent, please," she sobbed, grabbing at my pants leg like a desperate stranger. I made a terrible mistake. The worst mistake of my life. Brent isn't who I thought he was. He's a liar. A criminal. But you're a good man. You always were. I looked down at her and felt absolutely nothing. She was still on her knees, mascara running down her cheeks, hands clutching at my jeans like I was her last lifeline. Part of Mitha, part that had loved her for 5 years, wanted to feel something. Sympathy, maybe, pity, but all I felt was cold, hard clarity. "Please, Vincent," she begged, her voice cracking. "I love you. I never stopped loving you. I was confused, I was stupid, but I know now. You're the one I should have chosen. You're the one I want." She tried to pull herself up, reaching for my hands. I stepped back, let her fall forward slightly, catching herself on the doorframe. "You don't love me, Cassandra," I said quietly. "You love my stability. You love the fact that I own a house and have money in the bank. You love that I'm not sitting in a jail cell facing federal charges. Cross my arms, look down at this woman who used to be my whole world. You don't love me. You love what I can give you." "That's not true," she cried out, tears flowing freely now. "I was wrong about everything. Brent was a fantasy, but you're real. You're solid. You're boring?" I interrupted. "Safe, weak. Those were your words, remember?" I let that sink in for a moment. "You slapped me, Cassandra? Right here in this house? You told me I didn't make you feel anything. That Brent made you feel alive." She shook her head violently, reaching for me again. "I didn't mean it. I was angry. I was trying to justify what I was doing, but I didn't mean any of it." "Yes, you did." My voice was steel now. "You meant every word. And you know what? You were right. I was too safe, too trusting, too willing to overlook the fact that my wife was cheating on me because I wanted to believe in us." I paused. Let her see the man I'd become in her absence. But I'm not that man anymore. That's when Simone appeared in the hallway behind me. She didn't say anything, just placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. Cassandra's eyes went wide, tracking from Simone's face to her hand on my body, then back to my face. I watched the realization hit her like a physical blow. "This is Simone," I said calmly. "We met at a charity event 2 months ago. She's an architect. Smart, kind, and she chose me when she had every other option available." I felt Simone squeeze my shoulders supportively. "She chose me every single day since." Cassandra's face crumbled. Not just sadness, complete devastation. She was seeing everything she'd thrown away standing right in front of her, holding someone else. "Vincent, please. We have history. We have 5 years together. That has to mean something." "It does mean something," I said. "It means I learned what I deserve. And it's not someone who only wants me when their better option falls apart." I took Simone's hand, felt her fingers intertwine with mine. "You wanted passion? Adventure? Freedom? You got it all, Cassandra. You got exactly what you asked for. Behind her, on my phone screen visible through the window, a news report was playing footage of Brent being led into court in an orange jumpsuit, facing 15 years for fraud. Cassandra turned, saw it, and a sound came out of her that was almost inhuman. Pure anguish. I'm not taking you back, I said firmly. Not now, not ever. Not if you showed up here every day for the next 10 years. I stepped back into my house, Simone moving with me. You taught me the most valuable lesson of my life, Cassandra. You taught me that I deserve someone who chooses me first. Not second. Not as a backup plan. First. I started to close the door, but stopped for one final moment. Enjoy your freedom. The door clicked shut. Through the frosted glass, I could see her silhouette standing there, shoulders shaking with sobs. She stayed for almost 20 minutes before finally walking away. I watched her disappear down the street, then turned to Simone. She wrapped her arms around me, and for the first time in months, I felt completely at peace. You okay? She asked softly. I kissed her forehead. Yeah, I really am. We walked back to the living room together, leaving Cassandra's ghost outside where it belonged. My phone buzzed a text from Patricia. The divorce was finalized. Everything was official. Everything was done. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying someone. It's building a better life without them and letting them watch from the outside. Cassandra wanted passion and excitement, and she got it just not the kind she expected. She got the passion of regret, the excitement of consequences, the thrill of losing everything because she didn't appreciate what she had. As for me, I got something better. I got peace. I got clarity. I got someone who sees my quiet strength as a feature, not a flaw. And I got to close the door on the woman who thought I was too weak to fight back. She never saw it coming. None of them ever do.